Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another segment of Asaph Cafe. I am your host, Asaph Adonai, and on my left, the lovely Louise Bundy. And we were going to have an interesting debate today, but Emmett is not well, so I want to take this opportunity to wish Emmett well, and we'll have our little discussion in the future. But in the meantime, Louise Bundy's with me, and we're at the Han Hotel in Ho Chi Minh City, and we did like some outer space episodes.
I know.
And now I just wanted to do a set in Vietnam, so it's a gorgeous set.
It's beautiful.
Just the scenery in the background, it's just gorgeous. And since we're in Ho Chi Minh City, I'm gonna do that prelude in E minor by Chopin. I haven't done it in a while, but I think I can remember it. That's a beautiful song.
Gorgeous. I love Chopin.
Me too. See if I can remember this. I like to put a little expression into it as much as I can.
You should. Song. It is.
I always like the writings of Chopin as far as I know the etudes you can't really use like in a piano bar setting.
Mm-hmm.
They're just for technique. But
exactly.
But as far as the nocturnes, like this prelude I just did and so on, beautiful music.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
As I said before, I've used Chopin many times when I taught ballet,
mm-hmm.
Because the music is so amenable to the dance.
Let's have fun with Chopin. Yeah, here's I won't do the whole thing, but this is the waltz in, I think it's called the waltz in B minor, or the it's a prelude in B minor.
Okay.
I'm going to put a little intro here. I'm sorry, let me do it again.
That's okay.
It's been a while since I've done this one. First part of that.
Nice.
That's from the Urtext version.
Uh-huh.
This part that goes, it's a C natural note. Normally they use this note, but the Urtext version does that, and that's the version that Rubinstein did.
Ah.
So I adapted that.
Nice.
Instead
And I
of
did
the
do a ballet to
traditional.
that one.
Yeah. But all the Chopin works are just such beautiful works.
Absolutely.
I just haven't had time to really practice like I need to lately. I've got to get back into the swing of that. With that ABC pursuit, that's been taking a lot of my time.
Of course.
Because I have to sit in front of that computer like for hours and just send those proposals.
Right.
I have a list of every ABC station in the United States.
Wow.
Painstaking. Like one state's
my
got
God.
like 20.
I
I'm
know.
Like,
Yes. Yes.
and then you got like 49 of the states to go.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
the
I've
bigger
been-
states, bigger markets like New York, Chicago,
I know,
California, Houston.
especially
Yeah.
East Coast. I'm just dealing with the West right now. I'll get to the East Coast later.
Yeah.
But I'm determined to get that job if possible.
Good.
I want to, for the TV audience that doesn't know, I'm trying to get a job with ABC News doing the musical notes with Asaph Stories. They're the Asaph Stories. Oh, speaking of that, you remember the top 10 I did for 2015 and 16?
Yeah.
Well, I have the whole hour on both of those on different DVDs, and Lori's going to feature both of those at the end of this month.
Oh.
On the 31st, she'll show the entire Asaph Stories for 2015,
Nice.
and then a week or so later, she'll show the ones for 2016.
Nice.
So hopefully that might crack a door over to
Yeah.
ABC when Lori airs it, because they're all edited, and there'll be like a split second between each story.
Oh,
So
I
she's going to show all 10 of those
Wow.
in one segment.
Great.
And then a week later, the next year. So that'd be kind of cool.
Good.
Let's see if I can remember this one.
Ah, yes.
Isn't that pretty?
Oh, yes.
And we'll stop right there.
Oh, yeah. Well, waltz is a lot the easiest to do against to choreograph to.
But see, what's tricky about that one, it may not be technically quick, but your left hand is bouncing
Right.
past octaves.
Right.
You know, I used to get dizzy when I was first trying to put that together. It just took practice, just doing it slow, over and over,
There you go.
and not wearing my eyes out.
No kidding.
And there's this other songs that from Chopin I want to incorporate.
Good.
I'm going to spend this entire year working on the music of Chopin, so that
Good.
by the time the holiday comes, I'll be
Oh, yeah.
prepared,
Oh, yeah.
really prepared. And there's another one. I haven't learned it, so I'm going to fake my way through, but it goes something like this. Let's see if I can remember it. You recognize it? It's called the Nocturne in C sharp minor. It was used at the beginning of the film The Pianist with Adrian Brody.
Oh.
Remember that scene when he was playing over the radio, and this was the song. I've not learned. I'm just playing this by ear. This part is the first
okay.
part. Let's see. It went something like this. You recognize it?
It's really pretty.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song. So I'm gonna learn that too.
Nice.
I didn't know that I had the music to that at home, but it turns out I do.
Oh, good.
That was written posthumously, I think they call it,
Oh, okay.
after Chopin was gone, and that came out. So,
Oh, wow.
so I've got a lot of work I need to prepare, just classical stuff.
Great.
So that's my goal too this year. And getting back to ABC News, I've been sending, oh goodness, just sending those news stories out.
Good.
Because I've done hundreds of
Yeah,
stories
you have.
in the last 2.5 years. And so now it's time to take it to the next level.
Yep.
And I won't mention the network on this show, but one of the networks turned me down and said they don't do happy stories.
They don't do happy stories.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. And the
Well-
other one wanted it condensed to 1 minute.
Oh,
I said no, thank you,
No
because
way.
5 years from now, when I go to get another job, who's going to want 1 minute stories?
exactly.
I had some friends of mine advise me stay on course.
Yeah.
Just stay on course, and
Do what you know best.
yeah, because I want to be able to feature film footage
Sure.
and still
stills,
pictures
yeah.
as I'm narrating,
Yeah.
So
Nice.
I'll just painstakingly pursue that
Absolutely.
and see if I can make that happen.
Good.
And I think I told you my personal favorite is the story of Mark Goddard, the actor on Lost in Space
Right.
that played Major Don West.
Mm-hmm.
And I found some film footage of him very young playing Cully on the Johnny Ringo cowboy show.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah, he was lightning fast. And the footage I showed, he took on these two gunfighters in a cave. And they had this music, dun, 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 dun. And Mark Goddard pulls out this big rifle. He like lights into this one guy, and he flips over and he shoots the other guy.
Only on television.
I know.
And of course, the heroes always have to be lightning fast. Nobody's faster than Marshall Dillon. Nobody's faster than the Rifleman.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, come on.
Well, I think Johnny Ringo might be fast. I saw the intro to that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was lightning fast too. And Mark Goddard's character, how he became deputy sheriff. Originally, he was angry young youth because he was really young in this picture. He looked like a teenager.
Oh.
He was really young, and he was ticked off at Johnny Ringo because he thought Johnny Ringo killed his father.
Oh.
So I'm here to get revenge.
Oh.
And Johnny Ringo's telling his girlfriend and all the other people, I sure hope I don't have to kill this young man because I don't want to kill him. Because Johnny Ringo was like way lightning quick.
Well, he has to be. He's a
But
hero.
Mark Goddard's character was quick, but Johnny Ringo was quicker, much quicker. You don't know that when you watch it. You're
Right.
going to think Goddard's character is faster, right?
Right.
And then there's a showdown where, because he's a kid, he's like, Sheriff, you get out of here right now. I'm going to kill you. And so Johnny Ringo goes and faces Mark Goddard's character. And there was somebody hiding behind a wagon that wanted to shoot Johnny Ringo.
Oh.
So if he had shot Ringo, it would have looked like Goddard did it.
Ah.
But Goddard notices the guy behind the wagon. So Goddard's character, when he draws, instead of aiming at Johnny Ringo, he shoots at the guy that was behind the wagon. But Johnny Ringo thinks that Goddard's character is shooting at him. So naturally, as quick as he is, he shoots Goddard and shoots the gun out of his hand after Goddard
Shot the other guy.
shoots the other guy. And then when the other guy falls dead, Ringo realizes...
And he saved his life.
Yeah. And that's how Mark Goddard's character became the deputy sheriff.
My goodness.
And Ringo's like, look, I didn't kill your father. You know, they were
Right.
talking. Your father was doing such and such and
Right.
such and such.
Yeah.
And got himself killed.
Wow.
And you know how young kids will listen. He's like,
Sometimes.
hey kid, you're good. You're fast. I can use you on my service. And that's how that was the pilot episode too, by the way. I happened to watch that before I did the story on Johnny Ringo as far as doing that story
I'll be darned.
on Mark Goddard.
Huh.
And that was the pilot.
Wow. Yeah, I'd seen Mark
And they
Goddard in
were
other
both
things.
lightning quick.
Well, they have to be. They're on television.
Yeah, but Johnny Ringo was just a tad bit faster.
Yes. Well, he's a hero.
Yeah,
He's
so-
the star, the major star.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So they teamed up, and that's how come they were able to get law and order in that town, because
Invincible.
nobody could outshoot those two together.
Absolutely.
And so, like I mentioned, Goddard's character, Johnny Ringo, gets trapped in the cave explosion. So the bad guys are trying to make sure he don't come out of there. And that's when Mark Goddard goes into that cave to save his boss
I see.
and go after those two gunfighters. And I'll have to send it to you because I got the clip, that scene. And he had this gun similar to Chuck Connor's a little bit, this like long rifle. And the other guys had these little like 6-shooter guns. And
Oh, my goodness.
And Mark Goddard laid into that first gunfighter so fast, he just like, and like I said, does the flip, shoots the second guy.
Oh, my goodness.
So I don't even think anybody will remember Johnny Ringo.
I don't even know if I've seen it or not. Was that in the 50s?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably early.
Yeah, I was probably
In
watching
fact,
Lone
I
Ranger.
never even heard of Johnny Ringo.
Really?
I had never heard of that. It's just when I was looking up information on Mark Goddard, they mentioned that as a young man he was on a Western called Johnny Ringo. And so out of curiosity, I looked it up. I found the pilot episode and I took time to watch it.
That's why, because I watched all the westerns. I watched Range Rider and Lone Ranger, Cisco Kid, Wild Bill Hickok, and you know, I remember Johnny Yuma, the Rebel.
Yeah, but there was still a lot that I didn't know. And then there's like the Virginian.
I saw that. Yeah.
My parents used to watch the Virginian.
Yeah, I used to watch
Let's
that.
see if I can remember how to do it. Something like this. Something like that. Make that up.
Yeah.
But anyway, my parents used to watch the Virginian.
Yeah, I did. And I remember the Warner Brothers shows. They had Lawman and Maverick.
Yeah.
And
with a young James Garner, wasn't it? Yeah.
In fact, Maverick is still on MeTV.
That's right. I heard about that they were re-showing that.
It is.
And we lost Mike Connors recently. Mannix.
Oh, Mannix is on MeTV also.
See if I can pick it up. Let's see.
Ah, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No chord. I'm not going to do any chords.
Oh, sure.
So, there we go.
Yeah. He's on now after Alfred Hitchcock on MeTV.
And then they had that little piano solo that went something like this. See, if I can pick it up by ear. Something like that. You know.
Yeah.
This is good to try to figure it out because it's good, when
Yeah.
you pick stuff out by ear.
Sure.
There is a trick to it, like I mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
But
they show Mannix on at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then Ironside is on right after that.
Oh, Raymond Burr's
Yeah.
Ironside? Yeah. Did you see the new version of Ironside?
I don't
With
think so.
the African American actor? What was his name? You would know him too. It only lasted about a half a season. It was just like a remake of Ironside. I can't think of the actor's name. The African American actor played Ironside. Oh. And it was more like a hip modern version. I don't think it worked.
No, usually when they do remakes like that, they don't work as well. Because I know they have a new MacGyver, a remake.
Yeah,
of
I
MacGyver.
don't think much of
and
that.
And the old
either.
MacGyver is still on MeTV, and it's it was kind of cheesy in spots, but basically it was pretty.
But
clever.
some shows, when they're classics, I think they should be left alone.
They should. Now there's a new show though that shows these geniuses called Scorpion.
Oh, okay.
Where there's about 5 or 6 people, young people that are all have IQs of over 160. And one's like good at mechanics, one's like in psychology, one's good at chemistry. And they get into these situations. They work for the government, Homeland Security, and they get in these situations where there's no weapons or anything involved, but there's somebody that's in trouble, and they have to figure out ways to save. Whatever's going on, and they just come up with these amazing ideas.
Oh, I see.
And it's wonderful because there's no violence, there's no weapons at all, no gunplay, and no fighting and all that. It's
and that's
just
Scorpion. No, I've not seen that yet.
Scorpion. It's on CBS on 9 o'clock on Monday night, and it's really, really good. Very well done. I love it.
Well, let's see. Getting back to what I was saying, those westerns we were talking about. There were so many of those westerns I just don't know them.
Oh yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah.
And what is it, like early 50s maybe?
Yeah,
maybe
early 50s, late
40s?
50s, early 60s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because like Paladin and Rawhide and Wagon Train and all of those were wonderful. I used to watch them. And I like to watch westerns because of their horses. I know the names of almost everybody's horse.
Something like that.
That was Rawhide.
Rawhide, yeah. So.
But then they're still on MeTV on Saturdays.
That's what I like about MeTV.
Yeah.
They're showing all
the old
the
shows.
Stuff. Mannix, all those shows.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to learn that song.
Yeah.
That'd be a cool piano solo.
What's the cowboy show that Robert Culp had?
Yeah, I just watched that for the first time recently. It was some
it's
Arizona
on Saturday
something
morning.
or something.
Yeah.
Very early, about 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had never heard of that show.
I hadn't either. I didn't know Robert Culp played a cowboy.
I didn't either. The only reason why I happened to see that was because I couldn't sleep one morning.
Yeah.
I just randomly turned the television on and had forgot that I had it on MeTV from watching Land of the Giants and all of that. And his show was on.
Yeah.
I was like, Robert Culp, let's
I
check
know,
this out.
yeah, exactly. And then Paladin's on right after that, and then Maverick's on right after that.
Yeah, he plays some sort of a marshal or some
he does.
deputy or something or another.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I'd never seen Robert Culp that young before.
I know. Yeah, he was even younger than I Spy. That was before I Spy.
Oh, yeah. Let's see if I can figure out I Spy. There it is. But you got it. like that. Yeah.
Amazing.
You know, speaking of I Spy, I don't know if I told you, just last Christmas, the Christmas before, somebody bought me season 2 of I Spy, the entire season 2.
Wow.
You know, when that show was really just
Yeah, and it's heyday.
taken off. So I have I Spy in my collection DVD. I have the
Wow.
entire second
Great.
season. I was like, this is way cool. I Spy.
I know.
And I popped the DVD in, I was watching it, and I had forgotten so much.
Yeah.
It was
Well, that
almost
was-
like watching a new show again.
Well, that was breakthrough television, you know,
Yeah.
for Bill Cosby to be
Mhm.
on TV was.
Yeah,
you know,
wasn't he the first African American to get a
I
lead role
think
in
so.
I Spy?
I'm not now. I don't know if that was he was the first or Diana. I mean,
Dianne Carroll was
Dianne
first
Carroll
for
was for Julia.
television of
Yeah.
that. What sitcom? Did they
Yeah.
put that in the sitcom category?
Yeah, I think
Even
so.
though it had some serious moments.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Brand groundbreaking. Dianne
It
Carroll,
was, yeah.
Julia. Her show with something like
Yeah.
this. Let's see. Something like that.
You remember that? Oh my goodness.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, it just came to mind, so I just happened to remember
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
And they had some really catchy theme songs on some of
did.
those
That's true.
shows.
That's true. And a lot of them had singing. Do you remember Wagon Train when it was sung?
Yeah, I would be able
And
to sing
also
that. And Rawhide, I think, was singing Frankie Lane.
Frankie Lane sang Rawhide.
A very young
Yeah.
Frankie Lane.
Yeah. And Half Gun Will Travel had a singer too, and a guy singer.
Yeah, I wouldn't know who that is. I don't
Yeah.
know that Western very
I
well.
think it was maybe it was Robin Hood. I'm thinking of Robin Hood.
Here's trivia. Try this one. Try this one here. That's the first part of it.
You got.
Ren Tin Tin.
Oh my God. Oh,
Recognize it now?
Yeah, and I love that dog. Oh,
That's the
yeah.
first part of that, yeah. Ren Tin Tin.
Buster
I don't know if that fits in that
Crabbe. Oh my
category, yeah.
God,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
But I'll forget this maybe an hour from now, but it's fresh in my mind now that we're
Right,
talking
right,
about
right,
it.
right.
But
Oh my
yeah, there were
goodness.
so many shows from the past that people probably won't even remember.
I know. You know what silly show I liked? F Troop.
Yeah, it went something like this. Let's see if I can pick it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something like
Yeah.
that.
It used to be on. It was Forrest Tucker and Ken Berry.
Yeah. Something like
Mhm.
that, yeah. The theme, the F Troop.
I like that show because they showed that the cavalry were as silly as they made the Indians. You know, they were all equally
Yeah.
silly,
Mhm.
which was kind of fun.
You know, speaking of Ken Berry, I did a story on him too, and you know, he was such a great dancer.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know that watching him on F Troop.
True. He was always falling down.
Yeah, you wouldn't know that.
I know, that was great.
And Leonard Nimoy set up his original audition for the
Ah.
Arlene Francis show,
Huh.
because they were both in the Army in real life at that time.
Oh.
And Leonard Nimoy was hosting these Army shows.
Mhm.
Ken Berry went over there and won that thing,
Oh,
took
nice.
first place.
Nice.
And so that's how the whole thing started.
Wow.
And then about a year later, because Leonard Nimoy was the drill sergeant, his
Uh-huh.
actual drill sergeant.
Uh-huh.
And they set up an opportunity for him to go on the Ed Sullivan Show, and he became a hit
Oh, wow.
doing his little dancing.
Nice.
I've got the footage of that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw Leonard Nimoy on a Perry Mason one time. He wasn't such a nice guy. I think he was actually the murderer.
He's been a murderer a couple
I
times.
know.
Everybody always thinking of Mr. Spock,
I
you know.
know, yeah.
Good logical guy.
Exactly.
He's played a few killers
Yeah,
on TV.
He has.
He was a murderer on Columbo. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah.
He was that surgeon that,
Yeah.
and the one top prominent surgeon was having heart surgery,
Mhm.
and they had this.
They sewed him up with the wrong gut.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was this material that sewed the heart together. It would
Exactly.
disintegrate, causing
Exactly.
the guy to
Because of
have
the
another heart
right,
attack.
right.
And Columbo
Columbo
figured that
saw it,
out.
yeah.
So when they were put him back in surgery, Columbo's sitting upstairs watching to make sure Nimoy's character does it right.
I love Columbo.
So he does it right, but there was a thing where he tried to hide the
right in his
evidence.
pocket. Yeah, and Columbo caught it.
Mm-hmm.
That was great. Columbo always solves everything.
I like Columbo. I think it's the
Columbo.
best.
Oh, Peter Falk was well loved in Hollywood.
Goodness, I just think it's the best crime show of the past.
Yeah, Peter Falk was very well loved in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Just as a person, besides the character.
They said some really wonderful things about him in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And that show is just fun to watch.
It is. I just love the way he disarms people by looking like he's so bumbling,
Yeah. Now, they have the later versions of Columbo. I don't care for those as much.
Right.
But it's still fun to watch.
Oh,
but
sure.
the original Columbo,
It's,
right
on. It's perfect. He looks like he's bumping into things, and he's got the cigar and the rumpled look, the raincoat and everything.
Yeah.
And that's why the criminals let down their guards, because they figure, this guy, what is
Yeah,
he?
speaking of murders, some of the least likely actors have been murderers on Columbo. Dick Van Dyke was a murderer.
Yeah.
William Shatner was a
I
murderer.
know. Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah.
Eddie Albert.
That one was Suzanne Plachette.
Yeah.
And he has a relationship with the singer woman. And,
Right, yeah.
because she sees him commit the murder, so he's like smooth talking her, trying to get her to not see what
remember.
she thought she saw and not remember.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, they're all great.
Yeah.
And also the Perry Mason episodes were groundbreaking court dramas. Columbo's great as far as solving the crime itself, but in court, Perry Mason set the standard, I think, as far as photography and cinematography and acting and dialogue. Perry Mason really kind of set the bar.
Speaking of Perry Mason, I happened to see it last night. Did you see it just last night? Betty Davis.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so cool seeing Betty Davis be
I've seen that one before.
Defendant.
She was the attorney. The defense attorney. Yeah.
And I was on the computer last night, and I just happened to have MeTV on, so I wasn't paying attention to Perry Mason at first.
Mm-hmm.
And Betty Davis had that distinctive voice.
Yeah.
And I turned around, it's not Betty Davis. All it does is Betty Davis. I'll start watching.
Exactly. There were 4 or 5 episodes where Perry was in the hospital or had a broken arm or something like that, because he actually did have an injury. Yeah.
Okay.
And they brought in these other actors to take his
That would
place.
explain it. Yeah. And I noticed he was in the hospital bed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So,
but that was so good to see Betty Davis. That lady could act.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Definitely.
It was fun to watch that.
No kidding. And that young guy looked a lot like James Dean.
Oh yeah.
The defendant.
The guy that she was defending?
Yeah. I forget his name. But
I had never seen Betty Davis on that before.
Oh yeah, I'd seen that episode before.
Yeah, time is flying by. 20 minutes have gone by already.
Yes,
wow.
That's great.
Or actually 25 minutes already.
All right.
So yeah, we just talk about TV shows that have passed for a bit.
Yeah.
And gosh, I just wish they made shows like that again.
Well, the country was much more innocent in those days, much more naive, and so they didn't have to have all this action and CG effects, and it was just good
they didn't
acting.
have all this.
They didn't, They didn't need
have
them.
that,
Yeah, I know. They didn't need it, because people were more able to suspend reality and believe what was going on the screen. I really wish there was not so much violence and so many guns on television. It's just, I don't know. That's why I like shows like Scorpion, because there's no weapons. Yeah.
But getting back to the past shows like Columbo and so on, and even before that, the westerns and all, they were fun shows to watch.
Of course. Oh, absolutely.
They say film footage only lasts about 100 years. I wonder what's going to happen when those master footage starts to deteriorate.
They'll probably digitize them.
And save them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, just a thought.
Yeah, exactly. And I also like the old horror movies, like Svengoolie.
Yeah, I was watching a little bit of that. It was like the week before.
Godzilla?
Yeah, with Mothra.
Mothra.
And I looked at a little bit of it, and I remember watching this like, I can't believe I used to watch this when I was a kid.
It looks so cheesy now.
Godzilla and Mothra.
Yeah, Gamera, and, oh yeah. They were fun. They were a lot of fun. And the original Godzilla had Raymond Burr.
That was corny. No, I don't want to sound racist, but that was so corny that all these Japanese officials couldn't figure this out. They got this one white guy from the United States going all the way to Japan.
Yeah.
They helped the officials figure out how to kill Godzilla or whatever. I thought that was kind of corny.
Actually, it was the Japanese scientists that came up with the oxygen destroyer, which was what did it, you know. But yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Well, minorities have always had a bad rap in movies and television.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And that'll lead up to what we were talking about, Asians
in film.
Since we're in Vietnam.
Exactly.
But you're right. I mean, people of color in the early films, like the 1930s and 40s, I believe it was, they always got typecast.
Absolutely.
Or play these characters that weren't very smart.
Right.
And you know that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's not just African Americans, but Asians and Mexicans were all portrayed to be simple-minded and silly.
Yeah.
You know, and it's too bad because there are some amazing actors out there, you know, of color. You know, and now when you look at Denzel Washington, and, you know, I mean, good grief.
Yeah,
Morgan
Denzel's
Freeman.
got the look too, so.
Yeah, well, Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
he has that distinctive voice.
He does.
Morgan Freeman.
He does. James Earl Jones. I mean, there's so many actors, and Lena Horne, I believe, was a breakthrough actress that finally got a starring role.
Yeah, 1933, wasn't it?
I think so. I think so.
I can't remember the name of the film, but I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but she was also very feisty.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't put anything over on Lena. You know, she would tell you just like it is. Yeah.
She was a fantastic performer, but I think she was kind of bittered in a small
She was
way
very
later
bitter.
life.
Right.
Not because she's a bad person.
No.
But
just
having
because
gone
of
through the heart of all that bad stuff as a young woman.
Exactly. And then Hattie McDaniels finally won an Oscar for Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
In 1939, which was wonderful. Yeah, that was amazing. So, and then, you know, but they portrayed Asians, like the poor Chinese were given such a bad rap. They were only portrayed as coolies and servants, and, you know, they were brought out to the West to work on the railroads, and they used them to go into the mines and check for gases, and, you know, it was just terrible.
Right.
Terrible. Discriminated against, ostracized, you know.
Well, wasn't the NAACP responsible for putting change?
Absolutely.
I think if I remember, I think they went after Hollywood.
Yes.
In the early 60s. Maybe even sooner than that, just to change that.
Yeah, and I think that's why we had a proliferation of shows in the 60s that had a lot of African Americans.
Yeah,
and
like
the
leading up
70s.
to Julia.
Exactly. And you had the Jeffersons, you had Good Times. You know, Norman Lear was wonderful to be able to portray.
He was just being interviewed recently on PBS about his groundbreaking shows.
Yeah, he had a lot. And I loved them all. Oh, All in the Family was the best.
Let's see if I can figure out All in the Family.
Best. Yes. Yeah.
Something like
Those
that.
were the days,
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the one with Sammy Davis.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, especially that scene before that picture, and he gives Archie a kiss on the cheek.
Yes. The look on Archie's face was just perfect.
Well, Carroll O'Connor was the perfect actor, I think, to play that character.
He was.
You know, he was a brilliant actor.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, I've seen his early works, and he was just the right person for that.
Absolutely.
I don't think he was a racist bone in his body in real life.
But the character had to be.
Yeah, I know, and I understood that, so...
Yeah. In fact, all the characters on that show were great because, like, Meathead was, his son-in-law was the perfect liberal, hippie kind of character to play off of Archie's racism. And Edith was not too bright on this, the character Edith was not too bright, but she was very smart in her own way. And Gloria was his daughter and kind of in between Archie and Meathead, so, And then, of course, the neighbor, George Jefferson.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. They were at butt heads all the time. So, yeah, it was a great show. And then from that, we got Maude and who was Archie's cousin, and then we got the Jeffersons, of course, who was the neighbor, and then we had Good Times because Florida was Maud's maid. And
Yeah, and all those shows were spin-offs,
Yeah,
even
they were.
Flo.
Yeah,
Yes. And so eventually.
Yeah, it was great. Well, Flo was a spin-off from Alice.
No, not that one. I'm talking about the Jefferson's Maid.
Oh, right.
And she had her series too.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then wasn't it Flo or Florence or whatever her name
Florence,
was?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, and then the other Flo, Alice.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. That show went something like this. I can't believe you got me trying to put this out by ear. Something like. Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know how to. Something like that.
Yeah, it was close.
Yeah, but yeah, all those shows.
Yeah.
They're just gonna fade into what, television history or memory or something.
I guess.
But getting back to the groundbreaking, what's his name? Keye Luke. Yeah, he was groundbreaking for Asians in film.
Yes, he was.
He was. People don't know this. He was the original Kato in the Green Hornet serial.
Before Bruce Lee.
20 years before Bruce Lee.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I have the entire. How did they do it? They did. It was called serials, and so when the Green Hornet was about to get wiped out, they'd have the words going up. Tune in next week and see how the Green Hornet gets out.
Yeah, they were serials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I looked up and found the entire 13-volume serial, and Keye Luke was the original Kato.
Nice.
He wasn't like martial artist like Bruce Lee's version.
Right.
Because he always got in trouble, and the Green Hornet would bail him out too. It was kind of more evenly balanced.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, because with the Bruce Lee version, you notice the Green Hornet would get out of the way.
Yeah, that's true.
And Bruce Lee would be wiping out all the bad guys.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about this Green Hornet serial is 20 years earlier, 1940. And
Nice.
Gordon Jones was the actor that played
The Green Hornet?
the Green Hornet.
Okay.
So the mask, instead of it being the mask like the Lone Ranger, it was like a mask that covered his entire face. Kind of primitive in comparison.
Yeah.
And the Black Beauty could go like, 200 miles an hour.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So, and it was like a Model T style, more like a 1940s style car.
Yeah.
And it had a little slant in the back, and it had a sound like a bee. Bzzz, it was driving through the streets, and the bad guys and the cops could not catch the Green Hornet. That car is too fast.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
But yeah,
it's
that,
amazing.
People don't realize that was the original Green Hornet. They still had the Flight of the Bumblebee music.
Oh, okay.
And then 20 years later, it was Van Williams and Bruce Lee.
Right.
And that was more modernized for that time in comparison to 1940.
Sure. But Asians have, had a rough time in film.
I know.
And for a long time, white guys actually played Asian parts.
Yeah, that's what George Takei from Star Trek was saying.
Yeah, like with Charlie Chan, and Mr. Moto. I mean, Peter Lorre played Mr. Moto.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
He's about as Chinese as I am.
I know. And it's just so sad. And Indians. Tano, J. Silverheels was really the only one that was a real Indian that played an Indian. Yeah. But unfortunately, he was a buffoon, Yeah, he had broken English, and, it's just,
Well, I think the Indian community, Native American community, put a stop to that.
Yeah.
With Johnny Depp's performance.
They were very pleased with Johnny Depp's portrayal.
Yeah, I heard he got a special award from the Native people for portraying that.
Good.
And I also had heard that before they released that film, they invited the Indian chiefs and stuff in real life and showed that film.
Oh, sure. Because you don't want to offend anybody.
And they were very highly pleased with Depp's portrayal.
That's good.
And I think they couldn't have picked a better person
than
Johnny Depp for that.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I don't know how many Native American actors
another thing that was tough was, let's see if I can remember. I lost my train of thought, but if I think of it, I'll let you know. Getting back to people of color, it was tough for them.
Definitely.
I can't remember what I was going to say, but if it comes back to me, I'll say it.
Okay.
But
and it's only been here in the United States that's been a problem.
Yeah.
Because over the years, many musicians and entertainers have gone overseas and been welcomed like royalty. You know, Josephine Baker and Miles Davis and,
Yeah.
you know, some of the big band leaders, Count Basie, Duke Ellington.
Mhm.
They go to Germany, France, England,
Yeah.
Denmark, wherever, and they're just wonderful. There's no problem at all.
That's
They
correct.
come back here. Nat Cole came back here after performing overseas and couldn't get a room in the hotel in which he was performing.
Right.
You know, that's just
Well, they were just
boggles
talking about
the
stuff
mind.
like that on PBS just a couple days
Really?
ago. Well, I know it's March 2nd now,
Yeah.
but you know, with the Black History Month,
Right,
they
right.
were covering all
yeah,
that.
it's just so sad. I don't understand what that's about.
Well, you know, I lived overseas when I was a kid, and
Uh-huh.
we never experienced stuff
No.
like that too. You know, I'm glad to be an American, and I'm glad
Mhm.
to live in the U.S. But what I don't like about this country is the racial aspect.
Yeah, it
And
shouldn't
I'm
be
not
there.
trying to get political or sound racist, but it's a fact. I mean,
Yeah, and it shouldn't be there.
we're
People
the
are
greatest
people.
country in the world, the freest country in the world,
Right.
and we have the biggest issue with
Yeah.
race relations
Yeah.
in the United States compared to
Other
most
countries. Yeah, that's true, and it's so
'Cause
sad.
I lived in Asia when I was a kid.
Mhm.
I went to school there.
Yeah,
It was so different.
yeah, I bet.
I loved it. In fact, if I had my whole life to live over again, I would like to stay in Asia all 12
Yeah.
grades.
Yeah.
Really.
I know, it's just, it's really sad why people don't, I don't understand why any one person would think that another person, no matter what they look like, was inferior.
I know.
You know, whether they're developmentally handicapped or whether they're of different color, different nationality, different
Yeah.
religion.
Mhm.
Everybody's the same,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, when we do we got to turn this into a part 2 since you have some time.
I
We're
know.
almost running out of time, but
Yeah.
we're just getting into the heart of this.
Yeah, really.
But I like the United States, but I've always known that for years and years
Mhm.
that this country, as great as it is and as free as it is, has the biggest
Big
issues.
problem, big problem. Nobody
with
understands that there's
race
only one
relations.
race, the human race.
Yeah.
That's it.
Even our new fearless leader said we all bleed the same blood.
Yeah.
He said that in his speech.
I know, surprisingly.
Yeah. So and that's all I'm gonna go
I
with
know, we're
that.
not gonna
But
go there.
I'm just
Don't get
saying
me
that
started
was
on that.
interesting to hear that.
Yeah, yeah, but it's true, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
But it's so ingrained in this culture.
Yeah, you know, you're not born racist.
Of course not.
Here's a good example. Let's say a dog, a collie, a Labrador.
Mhm.
That dog's gonna go up and lick you whether you're black, Chinese.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And when
I
you're
know.
born, you're not born that way. You're taught that.
Yeah.
We're taught to be
Yes,
racist.
South Pacific, the musical, had a very
I
great
know, I
song
remember.
about that. You have to be carefully taught.
That's right.
And that's
then it's hard to snap out of that once you're ingrained. Once that's ingrained.
It is because the problem with that is it makes you feel superior to somebody else, which is a very difficult feeling to shake or give up. You don't want to give up that superiority, you know,
I know.
and be just like everybody else. It's
Mhm.
difficult,
That's right.
you know, and especially when you're told that the person you're superior to is less than human, you
Yeah.
know.
And you know, I think I told you the story. In 1985, I got invited to go to Idaho
Mhm.
to play for Martin Luther King.
Right.
And there were actually white people at that time that had never seen an African American person
I believe it.
in 1985.
Yeah.
And so internally, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" You know, because growing up in California,
Yeah.
I had to say to myself, "This is a teachable moment."
Exactly.
Now, if I'd have gone off
Oh no.
and got stupid,
No.
then they would assume the stereotype that all
That
black
everybody's
people are
like
bad,
that.
you know.
Yeah.
So I used it as a teachable moment.
Sure.
I was very respectful, polite, and I
Of
played,
course.
and I did all the appropriate songs.
Mhm.
And these white people were in the audience that had never seen an African American person, and
Yeah.
it was a hit.
Sure.
They came
Of
up to me
course.
later, they talked to me, and
Yeah.
it was almost like we'd been friends for years.
Of course, yeah. Like I've been accepted here at my job, and you
Yeah.
know, and outside, you know, and it took a while for that to happen. But
Yeah.
people realize that I'm just a person.
And you know, Missoula, this community as a whole has been, well, maybe because I'm a pianist,
Mhm.
has been good to me.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I'm not unmindful that even in a small city like Missoula, there's some racial
There
issues.
definitely are.
But it's just
Definitely
not as bad in comparison
Right.
to some places
are. Of course.
that I've
Oh
been.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I grew up in California too, and
So
it was.
yeah, and
you
white
know,
people sometimes have, they can't process that because they can't relate to that
Yeah.
because they're not walking those shoes,
Right,
you know.
yeah.
They're not colored.
That's true.
As the old saying goes.
I know.
I hate that term, colored.
I know.
Yikes.
I know.
Let me rephrase that. They're not African American.
Yeah,
you know.
really. But yeah, it's difficult. It's very difficult. And I must say that a lot of the inner city gang activity isn't helping that very much.
I know.
You know, I wish our brothers and sisters would get smart and realize that they need to contribute and not tear down. You know?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Night and day.
Night and day. Appropriate song?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I always think of Sinatra every time I hear this.
You know, I always also
I'm gonna
agree.
stop right there.
I also agree that America has the potential to be the most amazing country ever.
Yeah, if they can get past the racial
Just
aspect.
have to get past the us and them
Yeah.
idea, whether it's.
I mean, you
racial
see it
or
with
class.
interracial couples to this day.
Oh yeah.
You know, my sister's married to a white person, and they've been married for over 20 years.
Mhm.
And my sister was telling me about the struggles that they had when they first married with his family. And then they were afraid of how my birth mom was going to react. So they didn't tell my birth mother that they were married for the first 5 years of their marriage.
Wow.
They waited till the granddaughter was born.
Oh,
and when
yeah.
they slapped the grandchild on my
then
birth
it's-
mom,
yeah,
and she
then-
took a look at this baby, it was like all that
Oh, goes away.
was gone.
Yeah,
But
of
that's
course.
rare because that doesn't happen.
I know.
And, you know, that can backfire
It can.
really.
It can.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first husband was Hispanic, and my mother was not too happy about it.
Yeah.
But when my son was born, you know.
It's just like when I was married the second time. You know, I've been married twice, and the family of the second wife just was not happy with that interracial mix.
I know.
And I'm not going to mention names or anything,
Right.
but you could tell.
Yeah.
I was like the nicest guy
Oh,
prior to getting
sure.
married. When we got married, it just changed.
Oh dear. And it's so sad because any children that comes from a marriage, an interracial marriage, are gorgeous.
But you
They're
know,
beautiful.
after a year and a half, I let her go.
Yeah.
I did.
Well, that's a lot
because
of
the
stress.
pressure was
Yeah.
on her
It's a-
with
yeah.
her family
Yeah.
and the world she came from.
That's a lot of stress.
And I wrote about that in my autobiography
Yeah,
too, so
yeah.
I let her go.
Yeah, and it's really a shame. You know, I'm fortunate I have two beautiful children, you know, a son and a daughter. And I really think that it strengthens the gene pool for all of
But
us.
yeah, we were only married a year and a half, so but those things happen.
Yeah.
But if I were to ever get into an interracial relationship or marriage, this time I would make sure that this person I marry is going to be strong enough to withstand not only family but forces
Well,
of people that might
be
be
their own
opposed
person.
to it.
Yeah.
They have to
have their own mind.
get a rhinoceros high. You know?
Right.
That's the way to describe
But
it.
hopefully, if it happens, you won't be subjected to that anymore. You know, maybe.
Well, probably not so much in 2017, but we're
Yeah.
talking, this was over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
A lot can happen in 10 years.
That's true.
A lot can happen.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, PBS has been talking about Black History all month and
Mhm.
how African American people and other people of color, whether it's Hollywood or whatever, just had such a tough
Oh
time.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Musicians,
and it wasn't
singers,
just
families, children,
Exactly.
neighborhoods, you know.
Yeah. And it was athletes as well.
Yeah, I know.
You know, because
They were talking about Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
Look at the stuff that guy went through. Man, you
Oh.
would think that these people say, hey, we got a good baseball player here. We better jump on this.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, because they didn't want him to be equal to them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, how dare he be equal or better than the other
There were a lot of white. They were saying he had to shower separately.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he led the Dodgers to like
World champions.
world championships and
Yeah.
it's just
Which
awful
is why I
that.
love my Dodgers. You know.
Yeah, I know. I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that. I guess what I'm saying is this shouldn't be
Of course
this
not. Of course not.
racial
I know. Well, they had,
animosity or
well,
tension or
teams
whatever.
had the same problem when they had the first Asian ball player. You know.
Yeah.
You know, same kind of, not as bad, but still it was there. And he was one of the greatest pitchers. I'm talking about Hideo Nomo.
Yeah.
One of the greatest pitchers that they've ever had.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's crazy. It's really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why don't can't people see people from the inside out instead of the other way
Right.
around?
Yeah, no kidding.
You know?
Well, I've had my share of
Yeah, I've
people
had my
attacking
share.
me
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
this too
Me too.
in my
Me too.
lifetime.
Yeah.
Believe me when I tell you that.
Yeah.
I've been called the famous
Oh,
N-word
yes.
and, all of that.
Yep. Exactly.
And I think this country's come a long ways, but we
It
still
has.
got a long way to go.
We do. We really do.
And I
But
think
it
if
has
white
come a
people
long way.
realize that, it will help them to understand all the other nationalities of the world.
Exactly, and it doesn't
get
take
together.
away from them to
Of course
give
not.
to us or to give to another minority. Just because you share your space or your job or whatever with a
Right.
person of color doesn't
That's
take
right.
anything away from you. You're still
Mhm.
the same person you always were.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, one of the reasons why I never wanted to have children, because I didn't want to bring children into this racial aspect of
Yeah.
humanity.
Yeah, it's really, really hard for minorities
I know.
of all kinds. And look what's happening with Muslims now. I mean,
Yeah.
that's so sad.
It's no different than probably the Japanese in World
The
War
Japanese
II.
were interred. I just, when I heard that, I could not believe that my country would actually do something like that.
Yeah.
Like something that Hitler would do. That
Yikes.
my country would do the same thing.
Mhm.
You know, it was just, it broke my heart.
Mhm.
Broke my heart. When
Well, do you feel like to doing part 2 and continue this discussion?
I suppose we could do that.
All we have to do is just change the tape here. Let
Okay.
me make some acknowledgments here. This is Asaph Cafe, and normally it's comical, but we're in Ho Chi Minh City, so we're going to talk some serious stuff. And all I'm going to do is just shut this program down, pop in another tape, and we can start part 2 and pick up where we left
Okay.
off.
Sounds good.
We got about 5 minutes left, so I'll
Okay.
make those acknowledgments now.
Okay.
And this is good talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
This will have to do since our original
I
topic.
know. Yeah, that's fine. That's
But
fine.
yeah, I don't care what color a person is. It don't
No.
matter to me.
No. It's their character, not their color, that matters.
But I think when people in the United States realize that and get past that color thing, like Star Trek,
Oh, yeah.
everybody's all like,
one-
what?
Yeah, that's why I love Star Trek. Because
Yeah,
it's
like
just,
you get an airtime,
I
and it's
know.
like
Could be
there's green
Klingons
people,
and-
people with ears and
Yeah,
horns
sure.
and whatever. They don't care.
I know. I mean, look at Worf and married,
Yeah, I remember that
Yeah.
in Deep Space Nine. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
married to
One of
the
the
white
counselors.
girl, the counselor
Yeah.
or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
Jadzia, I think was her name.
Yeah.
And she had a little symbiont character,
Yeah.
the 9 lives or whatever.
Sure, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
That's
And
what was
racial
great
couple.
about Star Trek. We were hoping that by now things would be like that.
Yeah.
It's slowly getting there.
Yeah, I know. So I'm not trying to pick on no one race in the
No,
world. It's
no.
just truth is truth.
Yeah, exactly. And there's good and bad in every single race.
And we can talk about that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Black on black crime.
Oh, sure.
And I'm proud to be an African American person.
Mhm.
But sometimes I think African American people use what happened to them in the past as an excuse for their behavior.
I think so too. And
I've
it's very
seen
sad.
that too.
Yeah.
You know,
And
the other
whites do the
side
same
of that.
thing.
Yeah.
Whites look upon the way blacks were then and think that that's the way we should still be,
Yeah. Just stuff like that.
Yeah, that
but
happens.
only in America.
I
This
know.
is the only country where anything goes.
That's true. And it's the only country where we can freely talk about it too.
That's right, because
Yeah.
you can't go to the Philippines, even Ho Chi Minh City, where we're at.
Right.
Talk about that without
It's done nothing against
Have the government knocking on your door. ASAP.
I know.
We could cancel your cafe.
True.
True.
In Russia, it's the same
Yeah.
way, we'd have a big problem. Saudi Arabia probably, So we're very fortunate to have the freedom to be able to do this.
Well, my
kind of
final
show.
words for this part here, part 1.
Mhm.
Whatever a person's religious beliefs are, the New Testament does say, how can you say you love God who you have not seen and hate your brother who you have seen? Think about that.
Good question.
Because God could be like this big eyeball, like
I
that
know.
Charlton Heston cartoon. Did you see that?
No.
It was this, when Heston was already doing these series of cartoons,
Yeah.
and they were portraying the Garden of Eden, and God was like this big giant
Oh,
eyeball in
wow.
the sky.
Uh-huh.
And whoever the cartoonist was could make the eyeball angry, or
Oh.
it was pretty cool, pretty believable.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we know God's not a big giant eyeball. That's a depiction. But the point is, if you don't know what God looks like, and you can't say you love someone you haven't seen, and then there's like a zillion people all looking like you that you can't stand.
Yeah. That's true.
That's good food for thought.
Yeah, I've heard the comment, how can you hate me if you don't know me?
That's
You
right.
know?
Even Shrek said that.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
judge it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And on that note, let's sign out here and take a few minutes
Okay.
break, and we continue. This is Asaph Cafe. I'm with the lovely Louise Bundy, and we're just talking. Well, what is it? Not politics. I don't like politics.
No, it's
This is
not
just
politics.
life, you know.
Yeah. Talking about different aspects of
Of
life in
yes,
America.
that's right.
Yeah.
And I still we got a couple other things to touch on the next show.
Sure.
So until our next show for part 2, Maranatha. We'll just relax, make yourself at home, and we'll switch tastes and we'll continue.
Okay. What time is it?
It's 20 after 1.
Okay.
You want to put some more money?
I was thinking I probably should.
Well, I have to switch the tape anyway, so
Okay.
let me just do that.
I can run out and do that real quick.
All right.